Close your eyes and imagine. What if the things in life that cause us the greatest pain, the things that bring us grief, are challenges? Challenges designed to help us grow, to ultimately become what we were always meant to be. We feel like we've been buried, but what if, like a seed, we've been planted? And having been planted, we grow to become a mighty tree. Now, open your eyes. Open your eyes to this way of viewing life. Come with me as we explore your true, infinite, eternal nature. This is Grief to Growth, and I am your host, Brian Smith. Hi there, welcome to Grief to Growth. I'm your host, Brian Smith, and whether you're tuning in for the very first time or you've been walking on this journey with me for a while, I'm truly grateful that you're here. This show is a place for healing, for discovery, and for connection. We explore the big questions of life, who we are, why we're here, and what happens when we leave. If you're navigating life after loss, if you're wrestling with grief, or if you're just seeking meaning in your daily existence, you're not alone. And today's guest is one I know you're going to feel in your heart. My guest is Betsy Thiebaud Stephenson. She's a mother, a writer, and a fierce advocate for honest grief. In just 6 weeks in 2022, Betsy experienced the unimaginable. She lost her beloved son, Charlie, to suicide, her mother-in-law to dementia, and her family dog to cancer. But rather than avoid her pain, Betsy chose to move through it, embracing grief not as something to get over, but as a lifelong companion and a life forever changed. She's here today to talk about her book, Blackbird, a mother's reflection on loss, grief, and life after suicide. Betsy was told what many grieving writers hear, which was write from your scar, not your wound. But she wanted to write through her grief. We're going to talk about what that means. In our conversation, we're going to talk about Charlie, his light, his complexity, and his sudden passing just 11 weeks after first expressing thoughts of self-harm. We're going to explore the unexpected physical symptoms of grief, the social anxiety that comes with it, and how Betsy fought not to lose herself in the silence. So this is an episode for anyone walking through profound loss and a call to create space for truth-telling in our grief. So with that, I want to welcome Betsy Stephenson.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Betsy, thanks for being here. I always like to start when someone has lost a child, as I have. Tell me about your son.
I love those words. Charlie, I'm getting wobbly already. Charlie's my youngest. He has two older sisters. He died when he was 21. And his entire life, he was the easy kid. Family dynamics are a real thing.
Mhm.
And he was always the one who was like Mr. Chill. The room would be chaotic with noise and excitement and chaos and disruption. And he would just be sitting there, even as a toddler, playing with his toys or watching it all happen. And that's really was his true personality, even as he grew older and, middle school and teenage years and high school and college. He was an observer. He was quiet, but he wasn't shy. He was easy to get talking to. And in fact, he had a wicked sense of humor, kind of impish, and he would wait for just the right moment to make the really clever comment or observation. He liked to catch people off guard, but he was a very deep feeling person.
Hmm.
And so he became the guy that people turned to.
Hmm.
He was the one that his friends knew they could count on to listen to them or let them vent or be with them when they were struggling. And this even, or just needed companionship,
Hmm.
when he lived in a dorm, there were I heard after he died, there was a whole group of freshman boys who would automatically walk through the door at the end of the day and go straight to Charlie's room.
Hmm.
And he was older. So that, he pulled people in that way. They felt safe with him, you
Hmm.
know. And then when he got to college, he's a guy's guy. He was in a fraternity. He did all the fraternity things. And yeah, he was also the we heard the story after he died that he was leaving a party one night and there was a young lady coming in and he knew her, but she didn't know many people in the room. And so they stopped and said hi, and he's like, I'm leaving. And she's like, I'm looking for so and so, but I don't know anybody else here. And he's like, I'll go with you. I'll stay with you until you find your person. So he goes back in and helps her get oriented. That was the kind of guy he was,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. But I think in hindsight, and you never know these things until afterward, that selflessness, that focus on others, that consistent pull to be there for others made it hard for him to express what he needed
Wow.
and to express his priorities.
Yeah.
Others were vulnerable with him, but he didn't have a lot of practice making himself vulnerable to others. And so when he got sick, and depression is an illness,
Hmm.
I think that set him back because he was not used to, he felt like he couldn't impose on people,
Yeah.
that to express his needs or his fears was an imposition.
Hmm. So, well, first of all, I want to say I'm sorry for your loss, and I know you've had a few, in that short period of time, but particularly for your son. And when suicide happens, when someone transitions by suicide, there's usually a lot of questions, should I have seen this coming, et cetera. And I know you did have some indication before Charlie took his life. It was a pretty short period of time, though, as I understand it.
Mhm. Yes. So we we learned these things after the fact, but the general timeline was he'd never had depression, anxiety, or mental health struggles growing up or in high school, or we don't think the first 2 years of college. He
Hmm.
was in college his freshman year when the pandemic hit. And he came home for college spring break and then nobody went back, right? It was that,
Right. Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
lot of students, high school and college, had that experience. He, I think, because people often want to know, like, was it the pandemic? And of course, when the world is so scary, of course, that affects us all, right?
Hmm.
Um, but our family, blessedly, actually had a pretty positive and unifying pandemic experience, which is hard to say at a time when so many people struggled and suffered and are still dealing with the aftermath.
Hmm.
But he and his sisters were all living elsewhere, and they came home to Virginia, and we were the five of us together. And that was good at a time when we were, years before and certainly after our kids were growing up and moving out. And so as a parent, I loved it because we were all under
Yeah.
one roof again, right?
Yeah.
We are fortunate we have a large backyard, so we could be outside and we could not just be trapped in the house. And we also, Charlie particularly, had a couple of friends, like his best friends, his dearest friends that he did not go to college with, but he, knew from high school, they were all in the area and they kind of formed a little pod. And so he was with his buddies hanging out all the time. And they were able to go to, like, one of his friends had a lake house in North Carolina. So they went down there and just stayed for like 2 or 3 weeks, and they did their online classes and they, whatever.
Hmm.
So, like, there were some real positives. But then he went back to school, to college, and everything seemed fine. But I think, again, we figured out in hindsight about it was his junior year of college. He started to feel stressed, unmotivated, anxious, and just really was starting to have a hard time.
Hmm.
He did something that I remain very impressed by, which was he put himself in therapy.
Mm.
He used the campus resources. They put flyers out, they send emails, they say, if you need help, come to the counseling center, come to the health center. And he went and he signed up for therapy through
Yeah.
his university,
Hmm.
and he didn't tell us. Like, to me, that's part of the whole I don't want to bother you.
Yeah.
But also, I think it is an indication of just how, you know, depression is one of those things that we feel like we can handle ourselves, or we feel like we should handle ourselves.
Hmm.
So he went to therapy. We didn't know about it. And, it was okay. It certainly didn't hurt, but I don't think it helped as much as it needed to.
Hmm.
And then it just, I mean, I saw, we saw him a lot considering we were in different states, between holidays, and there would be events at school. And he, in March or April of his senior or junior year, I got a call from a friend of his who said that he had threatened self-harm. And
Hmm.
I was shocked. I had no idea. Remember, I didn't know he was in therapy. I didn't know he's having a hard time.
Right.
So this idea that he was having suicidal thoughts was like, what? And we dropped everything. I flew essentially overnight to Texas. I was there when the sun came up to meet him, stayed with him in a hotel for a week. It was right on campus, it was across from his house. He continued to go to classes. But that was the first time that I had talked to him and really could see how much he was struggling.
Mm.
And he wasn't eating, he had trouble sleeping. When he let himself go, when he allowed himself to be vulnerable, he was crying a lot. I hadn't seen him cry since he was a little boy.
Mm.
And, we got him help. He talked to the school, had a great program for if you're struggling. Um, they can work with your professors to make sure if you need more time or you need, that things like that. That was all. So it was like full on support, still in therapy. And I left after a week. He said, Mom, I got this. And I'm like, okay. At some point it becomes more strange to have your mom hanging around,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And he finished out the school year. I told him, I said, you don't have to finish if you don't want to.
Hmm.
We'll figure it out. It's not ideal, but we'll figure it out. If you are in a life or death situation, we're not going to sort of force you to keep working if it's going to kill you.
Right.
If your kid had a cancer diagnosis 2 months before the end of the school year, you wouldn't say, well, let's just finish out the school year and then we'll figure out how to treat it.
Right. Right.
If they, you know, got sick with a serious illness 3 weeks before at the end of football season, you wouldn't say, well, just keep playing. It's your junior year. It's important. Keep
Right.
playing.
Right.
And then we'll figure out how to do it. No, you would stop everything and you would say, how do we get you well? We'll deal with the rest later. And that was my attitude about Charlie's suicidal thoughts.
Hmm.
I said, if you can't do this, we will find a way. We will support you. First and foremost, we want you to be safe. He's like, I'm okay. I'm okay. So we knew he was seeing a therapist. We were checking in on him all the time. We had some friends checking in on him. He came home a few times. We met up for a family graduation. He did seem like he was struggling, but he was on it. And he was talking about it. And he was making plans to come home and to take a annual trip with his buddies, and he had a job lined up for the fall. It's like, you're looking at all these indicators. They tell
Right.
you these are the things you need to look for. And I was like, okay, he's sick, but he's okay. He's going to be okay. And 11 weeks between the time that I went to Texas to see him in this crisis moment, 11 weeks later, he killed himself.
Mm. Wow. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
And, what that tells me, what I realized, I've had depression before. I've been anxious. I've been treated for it, sometimes with medicine, sometimes not, thought talk therapy, exercise, all this. I thought I
Hmm.
really understood this disease.
Hmm.
I realized I learned the hard way with Charlie how sneaky it can be and just how strong it can be because you people think of depression as a quiet disease. In a lot of ways, it is, although one big symptom is anger.
Hmm.
People don't always realize that. They think I'm depressed, so I'm still and I'm quiet and I sleep. And that's true. That's all true.
Hmm.
But because of that sort of quiet, reputation, I know I underestimated how strong it could be.
Yeah.
And it is powerful. And that was a realization that really hit me hard. Um, because I felt like if you're ministering to it, you're taking care of it, it's manageable and it's not going to get you.
Yeah. Well, Betsy, I want to thank you for sharing that. And I think it's so important to talk about this when it comes to suicide in particular, because so many feelings come up with suicide that don't come up with other ways that people transition. Guilt is one I see with a lot of the people that I work with. I should have known better. I should have seen it coming. If I had just done this one thing, then
Mhm.
they, if I just told them I love them more, you did everything that anybody could physically be expected to do. And I hope people that are listening to this understand that if your loved one has transitioned by suicide, it's not your fault. It's not because you didn't do something, or if you loved them more, you could have kept them here, or anything like that.
Yeah, and that is a really hard. I mean, it's just sitting here as a parent on the other side of this.
Sure.
You know, I a couple things. I have come to a place where I don't blame myself. I don't hold myself fully responsible. But as a mom, I'm just being honest, I can't quite let myself off the hook, right?
Hmm.
It's our job as parents to protect our children.
Sure.
That's me. I'm not saying other people should feel that way, but that is a what where I have come on was that is I have to live with this for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
So in my grief journey, that's been my focus, not absolution. not getting over it. It's how do I live with this?
Hmm.
And there's the grief, and there's the shame, and then there's the, kind of just fundamental, I'm a parent. I need to protect my children. And the way that I have approached this is, if anything big happens in our life, especially something that's painful, divorce, loss, losing a job, losing a home, relationships gone wrong, betrayal, anything big that hurts. I really feel that you have to come up with the story that you tell yourself, right?
Hmm.
And it's your story.
Right.
It's not what your neighbors think. It's not even what your partner thinks. It's certainly not what strangers think.
Right.
What is your story that is going to enable you to continue to live
Hmm.
and move forward? And the only way to get to that story is you have to be brutally honest with yourself. You have to go there. You have to take every what if and follow it to its endpoint.
Mm.
So for me, what if I had made him stay home that summer instead of letting him live in his college town? What if he were under my roof? Right? Seems obvious. He's not
Hmm.
living in a group house with a bunch of fantastic people, but 21-year-olds. Um, Maybe if he were home, he wouldn't have done it. And I have to go down every scenario and every
Mm.
possibility. And sometimes it goes to an ugly place. Sometimes it goes to a place that says, no, that wouldn't have worked. Because what are you going to do? You going to lock him in his room, Betsy? He's 21 years old, right?
Yeah.
Come on, get real.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You have to see all those things through. And for someone with suicide, but I would even say traumatic loss, accidents, maybe illnesses that aren't
Hmm.
necessarily detected, things like that. You have to go all the, you have to be honest with yourself. This is not to anybody else. You don't know anybody anything. This is for you.
Hmm.
And then I had to accept that most of those questions did not have answers.
Hmm.
I will never know. No one will ever know. So, but only through going deep into them and being honest with myself could I come to a place and say, well, this is not something the universe is ever going to let me know.
Yeah.
And then you hold that and you say, it is what it is. I can't make it anything else.
Yeah.
And then through all that, you come up with your story. And story sometimes becomes that a story is not a fable. I mean, it's more of a fable than a cover up. It's like, um, what do I tell myself? So I tell myself I was on it. I tell myself I understood the situation to the best of my ability. I told myself he got help and I was consulting with professionals at the same time, making sure that I was doing the right things as a parent and a caregiver. Um, we took it seriously. This was out of character for him. And he got really sick unexpectedly and he thought he could handle it and he couldn't.
Yeah.
My husband's story is a little different, not hugely different, but he has ideas about things that were sort of triggering events or culprits or, things. Not that he could have done anything about them, but like his story focuses a little bit more on that. I focus on what I could have done. My husband focuses on the external world and how it was affecting our son. His sisters have a slightly different story.
Interesting. Yeah.
They don't, they will never be fact checked. You're not on the stand. It's not a deposition.
Yeah.
It, it's not even about being complete. It's what do you need to tell yourself, right?
Right.
And in our family, we respect each other's stories. We talk about them openly. So when someone says, I wish I just had done this, or sometimes I think about this, conversation or opportunity, and I think it really, that mattered more than I realized at the time. Those are their truths, and that's okay. It's not up to me to say, no, honey, you know, that was not important. Don't make that important. That's not my job. My job is to have what I can live with. And my husband has what he can live with, and his sisters and his roommates and his friends that were out with him the night before he died,
Mm.
hours before he died. Everyone has to have their own story.
Well, this is a good time to say to people, because I know you even say about your book, it's not how other people should do grief, it's about how you do grief. So we want to make
Yes.
that important or clear.
Yes.
And you said that. You said this is the way that this is what I have to do to process my grief. And grief is unique. It's different for everybody. And it's interesting when it comes to stories, because there are facts and then there are interpretations of facts. Now, so there's set that people can be given the same set of facts and interpret them completely differently. So, you talk about he did get help. You did go there. You did these things. You talked to him. You gave him support. You offered him all those things are facts. Could anybody have done more? That's where the interpretation comes in, right? Uh, and so it's something that you said, and for you, going down each one of those rabbit holes and going through the what ifs, it was important for you to come to the conclusions that you've come to. So I appreciate you being so open about your process. And I know that you had said, and when I got your information, that your publishers are said you should write from your, I want to get this right, should write from your scar, not from your wound, I think is what it is.
Mhm.
So what does that mean?
So it's a bit of a saying in the memoir world, and my book is a memoir, that you write from your scar, not from your wound, meaning um, your your memoir, your story that you share with others will be more effective if you give time and space and growth and learning and healing. Um, you put that between your audience and the inciting event, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that makes a lot of sense because a lot of times when people read memoirs, particularly about things like this, I want to see how someone else has gotten through it. I want to see where someone else ended up. They want to know what's possible. They want to know this person lost a child, but they made it.
They're
And
okay.
and that
Yeah.
has been huge for me. And I presume, but I shouldn't presume for you as well. You see people who have gone through the same journey, and you're like, okay, I don't feel like it today, but look at this guy. It's been 10 years. He did it,
Hmm.
you know. And so, but for me, when I was struggling in those early weeks and months after losing my son, my mother-in-law, and my dog, I was, everything was dead because everything was dying. Like every time I turned around, something was dying.
Yeah.
I mean, you should never have a direct line to the funeral home, you
Mm.
know?
Right.
And so I I I looked and searched. I'm a big reader. I looked hard to find books, podcasts, blogs. This is not a new topic. It is covered. It is very, there's a lot out there. And what I found was that for books, things fall into two categories: self-help, which is written by experts in their field. They usually have letters after their name, and thank God they dedicate their lives to understanding different aspects of grief or mental health or, motivation or whatever it is. And so that's filled with really important perspective, but also advice. And they're qualified to give advice, right? Or they're memoirs. And we learn from other people's experiences. We feel seen and heard. Oh, they went through this too, and this is how they handle it. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of value there. But I was so selfish in my grief that I'd pick up a beautiful memoir with a relevant situation, and I was like, I don't care about your childhood. I don't care about your extended family and the way all the characters that led up to this moment.
Hmm.
I want to know what to do now. I want to know, how do I go about healing or just existing when everything in my body and mind and soul has shut down? I want to know now.
Hmm.
And so I did read a lot and I consumed a lot, listening, and it was kind of like a nugget here and a piece there, and that's fine. That's good. I think
Hmm.
that's, if you like to consume information that way, it's a good thing. And so I was taking notes, and then I would take one of my personal questions and I would apply it against some insight or something I'd learned, and I'd turn it over and untangle it in writing. And then I realized that what I needed to do was write a book that dealt with that raw moment
Hmm.
and those ugly, ugly thoughts directed at me, myself, at Charlie, at the universe and God,
Hmm.
people who said stupid things to me like, don't you wish his friends could have done something? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so dealing with all that, the wound, without the benefit of time and building up the scar tissue. I just hit the 3-year anniversary of
Right.
Charlie's death.
Right.
And I do have a lot of scar tissue, but I feel like I got it the healthy way, not by slapping a band-aid on it and
Hmm.
just saying, hold your breath until it heals. I mean, I wanted to be exposed and out there, and I wanted my environment and my body to do the work.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest things with grief is we have to process it. We have to go through it. We can't go around it. We can't avoid it. And you decide, "Hey, I'm gonna dive right into this."
Yeah.
And I don't want to gloss over the fact that you also lost your mother-in-law and your dog during this period. So tell us about that experience.
It was so stunningly horrible. Um, I talked about Charlie and how we had 11 weeks between learning he was struggling till he died. He was 21. On the other end of the spectrum, we had my mother-in-law who'd had dementia. Her illness was a very slow burn. She'd had symptoms for more than 10 years,
Hmm.
and she was in a a great care facility 2 miles from our house. And she had been in memory care, so, kind of a nursing place for 4 years, no, 3 years, 3 years, a while.
Mm.
And so we were we anticipated losing her. She was in her mid 80s. And even though it's slow, you can see, they lose certain um, abilities.
Hmm.
And she wasn't talking very much. She barely recognized her son, my husband, didn't recognize me. We take the kids, our grown kids, and she didn't really recognize them.
Hmm.
So we knew it was coming. And she had just, um, the nurses and doctors are great. They tell you, well, it's been 3 days since she could feed herself. And you're like, okay. So there's these little acceleration points. And my mother-in-law had just hit one of those little acceleration points. And the flags were coming more frequently
Hmm.
when Charlie had his episode.
Mm.
And we believe part of our story, my story and my husband's story, is that one of the reasons he didn't turn to us more, and we had open communication, all that,
Sure.
is that he knew we were consumed with taking care of his grandmother.
Hmm.
So he wanted to take care of his health himself, which is fine.
Sure.
But it's a little bit of a unnecessary stoicism, that he had. Well, they're having to go to the nursing home every day to take care of Grammy. And I mean, she had care, but,
Right.
and he just didn't want to bother us. And so I, Charlie died. We're shocked. We're obliterated. We have his funeral service on a Friday, and I'd taken off from work between his death and his funeral. And then on Monday, I went back to the office, and my colleagues were fantastic, very supportive and gentle. And I mean, I was worthless anyway, but you just kind of have to ease back into life.
Hmm.
And I'm on a call on a Zoom, and it's my first morning back. And my husband comes into the room and he says, the nursing home called. We need to go right now.
Oh, wow.
And so I told my colleagues, I said, you're not going to believe this, but I I need to go be with my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
And so we went, and she hung on for like 2 days. So we would go back and forth. And we are in deep grief I mean, our son had died a few weeks before. Like we were 2 weeks before. We were
Yeah.
barely functioning.
Right.
And then, she passed peacefully, quietly. And, we'd spent a lot of time at her bedside. And unlike our son, who had this violent death out of the blue, she had this very protracted illness. She was in her 80s. And the contrast between the two was to be in the middle of that, because it's literally both sides
Exactly.
of the
Yeah.
grief story.
Yeah.
And you always say, which would you rather not, you want to know what's coming,
Yes.
or do you
Yeah.
want
We
it just
always
to,
play that game, right? Which
right,
is
you play
better.
that game, which they're talk about something that doesn't have an answer, right?
Right.
And we were in the middle of it. And you can't and in a way, I mean, that probably pushed me in my grief journey to more aggressively be a student of grief. I mean, I made it my job. I was like, everything around me is dying. So what am I going to do
Hmm.
to take care of myself and get through this? And and I couldn't lean on a trope or a this is the way it should be because I was
Right.
hitting it from all sides,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
And then your dog, when did that happen?
3 weeks later, um, and our dog was 10 years old, family dog. Charlie loved her. Her name was Bear. And she had been diagnosed, she had tumors. She'd been diagnosed again right when Charlie had his distress episode.
Oh, wow.
So we're going through all this at the same time. I mean, like Charlie's sick, mother-in-law's getting sicker. We also lost a beloved aunt during that time. My husband had back surgery. Oh, and then the dog has cancer.
Mm.
This was all like bam, bam, bam. And then it all kind of just came to a head just weeks later. And so the dog's cancer diagnosis was terminal, but they said that it could be pretty aggressive, but they're like, if you want, you can do chemo and treatments and stuff like that. And because we were going through so much with Charles' mother and the lost aunt, and we said, let's try and see if we can extend this dog's life, right?
Mm.
She's 10, she's not young, but she's not super old.
Hmm.
And she wasn't in a lot of pain. That was a big thing.
Yeah.
She was acting pretty normally. It's just inside she was a wreck. And so the kids knew, Charlie knew, and the vet had said, this is the kind of thing it's going to come fast. She'll seem normal, and then she might just collapse, and the tumors literally would rupture.
Mm.
And so just be on the lookout. And if a tumor ruptures, there's usually nothing we can do about it. We're like, okay, we gotcha. So she's undergoing these treatments, and um, it seems to be going well. And then Charlie dies. And then Paula, my mother-in-law, dies. And then my husband and I are just like, our dog, not our dog. Don't take our dog,
Mm.
because
Hmm.
you're clinging to whatever you can, right?
Sure.
And 3 weeks after my mother-in-law died, we find the dog collapsed outside of Charlie's bedroom.
Mm.
She'd been fine,
Mm.
she was operating normally. Like, we weren't running her heart or anything, but you wouldn't know she was sick.
Mm.
It's just like the veterinarian said, it's going to come fast. She had a tumor in her heart that
Mm.
exploded.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know what to believe. I believe different things on different days, but you can't tell me that that's not a sign that there are higher forces. She missed her boy. Her heart was
Hmm.
broken.
Hmm.
She
Yeah.
sensed our pain.
Yeah.
And
And Betsy, it's been about 3 years.
yeah,
Um, I tell people, especially parents who've lost children, 3 years is still early grief. So I'm not going to ask you where you've landed because I know you're still on this journey. But where are you? Where are you now in terms of? You said the guilt. You haven't completely absolved yourself, but you're not taking full responsibility. Um, and you mentioned, your dog Bear. I think it is Bear.
hmm
You think that's a sign that that was her time to go. Where are your thoughts on this now?
Hmm. That
or
it's hard
today,
for
I
me to
should say.
answer. Yeah, I will say that talking about it, writing about it from the earliest days, being forthcoming about cause of death, and then trying to untangle these things and in writing and in therapy and with my friends has brought me to, let's say, a healthy place. Okay. I feel healthy. I can go about my days, right? There was a time I couldn't leave the house. I didn't leave the house for about a year,
Mm.
effectively. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
I had like three places I went. And um, in order to do more, I needed to have someone with me. I mean, I was really shut down. I was fortunate to be able to do my job remotely and over Zoom. So I was seeing people and interacting in a,
Hmm.
you know, in a functioning world, but I was not out there. And so my goal was to get my feet on solid ground, to know that I could do what I needed to do to have a life, to live in the world, to stay connected with people, to cultivate curiosity. All that dies
Hmm.
when your
Hmm.
child dies. You
Yes.
don't care
Yeah.
what's going on out there. You don't care how other people are. I didn't care how other people were.
Hmm.
I wasn't interested in my world or my community. And I knew that was not sustainable. And so my goal has always been to become a functioning human, like
Mm.
so that if I need to go somewhere or I need to do something, or if it's the right thing to call on someone or to participate, that I have the strength and the skills to do it.
Mm.
And I am in a healthy place. I can do that. I have also in the last year become much more proactive and I'm more likely to initiate things to say, hey, join me for dinner, or hey, let's go for a walk, as opposed to before people were like, I'm doing this. I'd like you to come with me. Like that was how I
Right.
got out. Now, grief is crazy, you know. I mean, I can have this conversation about this, like all the deepest details of what I've been through. And, I can get a little choked up, but like, you and I, we're covering some ground.
Hmm.
And I can feel like this is comfortable for me to talk about. And then I'll be driving down the street and whatever, something invisible flashes across your mind.
Hmm.
And I go, oh my gosh, my son is dead. And it's alarming. And I cry. And, sometimes it's 30 seconds and sometimes it's pull over to the side of the road.
Hmm.
But I always let myself feel that. I never fight it. Even if I'm out with people, if I need to pull myself away to another room or a bathroom or whatever, I'll do that.
Hmm.
But I'm not afraid to cry in front of people, or I'm not afraid to say, gosh, I'm kind of having a moment, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit down for a second. You carry on your conversation or whatever. And that gives me agency
Yes.
so that the
Yes.
grief doesn't rule me. It's a part of me. It exists. I don't hide it. I don't fight it. I don't pretend it's not there. I try really hard not to compartmentalize because it's going to come out anyway.
Hmm.
So when it happens, I let it happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important for people to understand that, and that this idea that we get over grief and we wait 5 years and we write our book and then we can tell people, yeah, it's all behind me now. It's not. It's been 10 years for me. It
Ah,
was 10 years last month, about a month ago. And there's still those moments. There's still those times you wake up and you go, I can't believe this is my life. and
right.
and that's okay. And as you said, it might last for 30 seconds, it might last a little longer. For me, it doesn't last a whole day anymore. It certainly doesn't last for weeks like it used to.
Yeah.
But those moments still do come, and the grief is still with us. And the questions that you're asking and answering, and the conclusions that we come to. So I ask you, how do you feel about this today? Because it's still developing for me as to
Yeah.
what I feel about the meaning behind this and why it happened. And I will tell you this, Betsy, after talking to hundreds or thousands of parents who've lost children, guilt is almost universal. It's been universal in my experience. I'm not going to say it's everybody, but it's been universal in my experience. Whether it's a child that passed from cancer, maybe I
Mm-hmm.
should have known sooner,
Mm-hmm.
or killed by a drunk driver. Maybe I shouldn't have let
Mm-hmm.
them go to that, go out with their boyfriend or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. We do play these what if games. What if I had done this? What if I had done that? And
Mm-hmm.
as you said, we all have to come to our own conclusions when it comes to that. And I think it's a process that we have to go through. I don't know
Yeah.
anybody that hasn't gone through it.
Right.
I went through it. For me, it was really quick. I was like, this is not taking me to a good place. So I just said, I'm not doing this. But
Mm-hmm.
everybody has, it's their own, it's on your own time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And emphasizing a point you made earlier, this is this is how I did it. And this is what's worked for me. And there is the one of the things that I really struggled with after Charlie died, and then with all this subsequent loss, here I am thinking I I didn't parent correctly. I didn't fulfill my motherly duty,
Mm,
and I didn't do it right. And now I'm not grieving right.
mm,
You know, I'm supposed to be mad. I'm supposed to bargain. I'm supposed to, and so that at a time when your self-esteem is non-existent, you're questioning everything about your life, every decision you ever made. And you're certainly questioning your ability to be responsible enough to just exist and go forward. What kind
mhm,
of world wants someone like me in it? And then you're like, I can't even grieve right.
mm,
And so I think it's really important that no matter the circumstance, no matter the relationship, you grieve the way you want to grieve. The only requirement is to be honest with yourself,
mhm,
right? And that does require vulnerability. There's no formula, there's no prescription, there are no categories that you need to go through and check. If anger is your grief language, then be mad.
mhm.
If
Yeah.
sadness is it, if becoming a postmortem forensic emotional detective is it, do it.
Mhm.
It's all okay, but you have to do it. You can't just say, you know, well, this happened and
Yeah.
I have to pretend like it didn't.
Right. Well, and again, it's really, because I work with people in grief, and listen to you as you're going through your thing, and I'm like, okay, this is your thing.
Right,
This is the way that
right.
you go through it, everybody, as I said, everybody's different for what processes they have to go through,
Mhm.
and sometimes from outside, we see someone going through something. We're like, I don't know if that's going to a good place, but you have to draw that conclusion yourself.
Yes,
You have to get to
yes.
that place for yourself. So going down those paths, going down those rabbit
Mhm.
holes. And I think and I love the fact that you wrote this book when you're still raw in your grief, because people need to know that, okay, I'm going through this and I feel terrible. I feel guilt. I feel like I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing the grief right. I should be more sad or I should be more angry.
Yeah.
All I feel is numb.
Yeah.
All those emotions that people feel, and we need sometimes we kind of need permission from someone else to say what this is okay. And it took you being very vulnerable to come out and to put this stuff out. So I really appreciate you doing that and putting this out into the world because I know it's and I wonder what kind of feedback you've gotten from the book. How have people responded?
It is, the feedback is what keeps me going,
Mm,
Um, I mean, I'm in a good place, and I knew I needed to write this book and to get this out there for me. But it has been so affirming. I get messages from folks, or I talk to people at book events, and they say, first, the two most powerful words, me too.
mm,
But they also say things like, you know, I feel validated in my experience, or I understand more now what was going on with me,
mm,
or, and this is really important because my community and my friends were absolutely essential to are essential to my healing. Um, People say, I have a friend who's going through a similar situation. Now I understand where they are better. It helps me know how to care for
yeah,
them.
yeah,
And that's really important. I mean, yes, I wrote it for people who have lost children or who have lost loved ones to suicide, but I also wrote it for anyone who just wants to understand what grief is like when you're in the middle of the wound.
yeah,
And that we all go through it.
yes.
It's universal, It
Y-
we all need to do better to try and understand what this does to people, what it will do to us. And one of the most revolutionary thoughts that I had, that I think every griever has, especially in the early days, is you're carrying this loss and this weight and this emotion, and you pull yourself up and you go out into the world and you look around at the intersection or at the line at the coffee shop, or the people in the parking lot, and you go, every single person that I can see has or will experience what I'm experiencing.
yeah,
It's humbling. It's humbling because it's so personal. The grief is so personal. And, I was very, like I said, I was very selfish. I didn't feel bad about being selfish, but I was like, just me, Charlie, Charlie, Charlie.
hmm
And you look and you go, that man may have lost a child. That woman lost her partner of 50 years.
hmm yeah.
You know, it happens.
You're absolutely right. And it is, there are a couple of universal experiences. Unfortunately, I think they're grief and death. We know we're all going to die. We're all going to walk that road someday, as my mother-in-law said. And if we're here long enough, we're going to lose somebody or something. So we're all going to have these universal experiences, but we make it so personal and so private. So as you're walking, as you said, you were standing in line at the coffee shop or the movie theater or whatever, you're looking at a person, you don't know what their grief is, but they've either experienced it or they're going to.
They're going to, yeah.
Yeah, and so we need people like you that puts that on display for people like this is a way to walk through it. This is, and there's some, it's good to, as you said, honesty is really important. Honoring your grief, having your grief witnessed is very important. Those things I think are
Yes.
universal. It's not, and I was talking to someone fairly recently. I found that shame is a big part of grief when people feel like I'm not doing it right
Yeah.
or they're feeling some guilt that they don't want to speak out loud.
Hmm.
Again, and especially in the case of suicide, like if I'd done this or I'd done that, it's almost, unspeakable. But, getting those things out, as you said, going down that rabbit hole, rabbit trail, that's probably a healthy thing to do for a while. I
Yeah.
do want to ask you at the very beginning we started talking. I noticed people's language, and you talk about Charlie in the present tense. So how is Charlie a part of your life now?
This has been one of, I think, the most beautiful things. I heard early on, and I'm sure you've heard it many times, that, when you lose someone, they're still with you. You just have a different relationship with them.
Hmm.
And that brought me so much comfort. And so I try and cultivate that relationship. You know, it's got some pretty terrible parameters around it. I wish I could hug him or hear his laugh or ask him things and get an answer back.
Hmm.
But the the ways that I have come to bring him into my life or keep him in my life and our family and amazingly his friends. This really feeds my soul, so we always say his name. We bring him up. And of course, a lot of it is memories, oh, remember when we did this and Charlie said that. But it's also, Charlie would love this,
Hmm.
or I wonder what he would say about this. And then we get into a game of, well, I think he would say this, and I would think he would that. He is with us and present. And, there's a subtle little shift that happened about the 2 year mark for me. I realized that I could bring him up in casual conversation, like in a social setting where, I'm talking to people I know, but not like my friends who know everything. So there was a moment I was talking with a group of women. I was at like a luncheon event thing. And we're playing the kind of who are you and who do you know and where do you live and what do you do, the kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
And, these are all strangers to me. And one of them said, I, this is whatever, da da da. I've got 3 kids. They went to this high school and her kids were older than mine.
Hmm.
And the high school was the same school that Charlie went to. And I realized I could say, oh, my son went there too. Not, my son went there too, but he died.
Right.
For the conversation, the setting, the people, I could bring him up and I wasn't afraid to say he died. I
Hmm.
was willing to say, if somebody said, where is he now? I would have said, we lost him.
Hmm. Hmm.
But, but the conversation stayed in that, oh, I know that school. Oh, what do you think about this neighborhood? Kind of level. And no one asked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to me, that was a little bit of a breakthrough moment where he's with me. I'm bringing him up. He's a part of my life. I'm speaking about him the way I would have spoken about him
That's
when he was
awesome.
alive,
That's awesome. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. I know I've had those experiences, and it's funny because Shayna's with me. I was gonna say I think I know Shayna's with me, and I know that not that I would deny her anyway, but she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not denying me. So when people ask me how
Right.
many kids I have, I have two girls.
Yes. Yes,
Um, and
absolutely.
then if it goes, it
Yeah.
depends on the situation,
Yeah.
where it goes. And I've had situations where, I'm like, I'm trying to spare their feelings because I don't really care.
Yes.
So I don't,
Yes.
and finally it's like, okay, well, she's not here anymore. And then you get the, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like,
Mhm.
it's okay. It's okay. But I love that he's still part of your family. And we're still a family of four.
Yes.
So I think that's really important that you keep him with you. So we're coming to the end of our time. I want to thank you so much for doing this. Remind people of the name of your book and where people can find out more about you.
The book is called Blackbird, and it is available wherever books are sold. Amazon, you can go to a local bookstore and order it there, bookshop.org. I have a website, blackbirdbetsy.com. You can also order the book through there for a bit of a discount. But I have some resources about suicide and grief. Then I'm also on social media, primarily on Instagram. Blackbird Betsy 21 is my handle.
Awesome. Well, Betsy, again, thank you for doing this today. Thank you for sharing Charlie and your mother-in-law and Bear with us. Thank you for being a model for what it's like to walk through grief. One way of walking through grief, right? That people can take what works for them. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a great afternoon.